Hey there everyone, I'm Michael, and welcome to another video. I said in a previous video that I wouldn't be doing dev updates very often, but I'm going to be doing them every time I push out a new build for a game that I'm working on. And I'm about to do just that. What you're seeing in front of you right now is a command shell, and it's no ordinary command shell. You might think that it's Linux, but it's not Linux. You might think that it's Windows, but it's not Windows. It is actually a game that I'm working on called Red Team. Now, in that video where I said I wouldn't be making dev updates, I did tease a hacking game that I was working on. And at the time, I called it Disappeared Strength of Distrust, and it was about being a bank robber, or a retired bank robber trying to hack their way into not being a fugitive anymore. I couldn't really make the story work, and I'll be honest, the code got really hard to work with after a while, so I decided to scrap that hacking game. Because I just didn't... I don't know what you guys want me to do. If there's a project that I'm not having fun working on, and I haven't even released a build yet, why would I keep working on it? But still, I want to make a hacking game, because, well, while that project wasn't fun to me, this one actually is, and hacking games in general are fun for me to make, and for me to brainstorm. So I'm making Red Team, and it's about, basically, you're a red team agent, basically. And what red teaming means is basically companies will sometimes hire other companies or people to basically be their enemy in the context of hacking and cybersecurity, and that's called red teaming. Essentially, you are getting paid to break their system and break it however the fuck you can, and they have no control over it. And then the idea is, whenever you break in, they hopefully see that you broke in, and they try to fix the issue, possibly hiring a blue team or something else. But all you care about is getting in and, you know, exposing some sort of security flaw. Anyway, that's what the game is about. Right now, there is no gameplay in this game. I'm deciding to do development in a multi-phase sort of way, which is not something I typically do in my game projects. Generally I just kind of wing it, but instead with this one, I'm doing it in multiple steps. The first step is getting the absolute core input and output controls set up, and that is writing a GUI system that is basic enough that a terminal emulator can run, and from there, the terminal emulator, fleshing that all out, writing some core commands, writing a command shell, getting all that done, so that you basically have a shell that you can play around with and try in-game commands with. There's no game here. There's no save system, there is no in-game VFS, there is no operating system. There is just the command shell, and the facilities for making that work. And that's what you're seeing in front of you. You are seeing Red Team's command shell as I have developed it so far. Now, you may be wondering, though, well, if there's no save system, and there's no in-game operating system, then how are you running a command shell with actual commands, and how is there a actual Linux-style command prompt in front of us right now? Well, that's because... well, let's run NeoFetch. I'm going to explain a little bit of what's going on here. So this is the NeoFetch command. Linux users will be very familiar with NeoFetch, hopefully. What it is that it's a fun little command you can run. Some people set it as their startup command when they run bash or their shell. It basically tells you information about your system, and I just hit my elbow on my doorknob. That's great. Anyway, it tells you information about your system, your hardware configuration, your operating system, and all that stuff. And I've implemented NeoFetch into the game. And it's an actual diagnostic tool. It's not just a toy in this. It actually tells you a lot about what's going on in the game right now and how it's all set up here. So if we go down the list, we can see that our OS is Red Team OS 1.0.0.0. That is not a hard-coded value. It is actually the version of the game. Below that is your kernel. Or, no, not kernel, your host. Microsoft Windows NT 10.0 point whatever. That is the operating system that the game is running on. kernel is monogame in its actual version string, which is an important thing to know, because this game is written in monogame, and maybe there's a bug in the game somewhere that might be monogame specific, and specific to whatever version the game is compiled for. You might want to know that. I decided to refer to that as a kernel because if you think about it, well, monogame is essentially a kernel in the context of virtual operating systems, in that it interfaces with your keyboard and all your hardware and stuff like that, and allows you to basically get things onto the screen. Without monogame, essentially this NeoFetch screen wouldn't be running, so to that end, in this case, I would consider it a kernel. Anyway, uptime is actual uptime. It tells you the time that the game has spent running. So it's been up for 4 minutes and more than that by now, and that might be a useful information. Maybe there's a memory leak going on, and the game's starting to slow down. Well, it might be handy to know how long the game has been running before that memory issue started to become visible. Then there's packages, which right now that means nothing, but it does give you a glimpse into what I'm thinking of implementing. There's upgrades, which are your Shiftorium style upgrades from the ShiftNet and Socially Distant. There's RPKG, which are PeaceNet style packages that you can install that add new programs and stuff like that. And then there's ModLoader, which is, I'm going to add a mod system to the game so that you can actually write your own stories and all that stuff. And the ModLoader packages will tell you what how many mods are loaded. And then there'll probably be a ModLoader command eventually, but anyway, let's continue. The next few values are hard-coded, and they're mostly there for decoration. DE, desktop environment, is red team GUI. WM is red WM. Hell is red S8 0.1, that's a hard-coded value. That is the hell that we are actually running right now. That's what I've decided to call it, red S8, because it's the red hell. But it's not exactly bash. And then there's terminal, red term, which is the terminal that's rendering the text. Now, in actual Linux, it might give you a file path to an actual terminal file or device, but I'm not doing that in this case. I'm going to tell you what the terminal is called in the context of the game world. Then it actually then the last few values are actual diagnostic values. CPU is, of course, my actual CPU, which is an AMD Ryzen 7 3700X 8-core processor. And then the next one is the APU, which is actually a GeForce RTX 2060, and it tells you some extra information that I forgot to parse out, but I'm not going to worry about it because it makes it look cool. And then memory, it'll tell you how much memory the game is using versus how much RAM you actually have on your system. Since I have 48 gigs of RAM, it's telling me that I have 48 gigs of RAM. Now, I'm not sure if those are megabytes or mebibytes. It might not be megabytes. I'd have to run NeoFetch on my actual system to figure that out. But either way, it does tell you that information. I might have gotten the metric a bit wrong. But it actually pulls it from the operating system, which is cool. And then the next little thingy is just your standard NeoFetch terminal color demo thingy. The terminal can display 16 colors, and those are what the colors are. That's what that is. So that's NeoFetch. And that tells you that this is, in fact, pulling from real operating system information. And it also tells you your username and your hostname, which is actually pulled from the real operating system. Now, once the game is actually a game, and I've written the Red Team OS, the virtual OS, it's not going to display this type of information. It's going to display your host and all that stuff, all the diagnostic info, but your username is going to be your in-game username, and your hostname is going to be your in-game hostname, and stuff like that. So that is to be noted. And of course, the ASCII art next to all this information is a monogame logo, until I can get a real logo for the in-game operating system commissioned, which I do not have yet. So I decided to put a nice looking monogame logo to signify that this is in fact monogame, which is cool. I did that ASCII art all basically by myself, including the color codes. Anyway, let's continue on with the terminal and show you guys what's going on. So as far as file system goes, it's pulling from your host operating system. Now, big warning here. I have tried my absolute best to make sure that the game cannot fuck up your system. If you try to rm-rf/, it will not work. If you try to delete system files in Windows, it will not work. However, I do realize that people are going to disregard safeguards, and they will find a way to break the system. Never underestimate the stupidity of your fellow human. So, I am not legally responsible at all for any commands you run in the game that end up with a bricked operating system. Just getting that out there right now. Because I'm saying this. Because it pulls actual data from your operating system, in that you can browse your actual files. For example, I'm in my home directory. If I do a pwd, which is print working directory, you're going to see that I am in /c/users/thapl, which is my actual Windows home folder. And if I do an ls to list the directories, it's going to show me that there are all of the files that I have in my Windows home directory. And I can cd into them and do all that stuff. In fact, I can even see all of my drives by doing ls/. And in Windows, when the game is running on Windows, that's going to list all of your drive letters, including the, and then there's the dev drive, which is to emulate things like /dev/null, so that some of the game's features can work in this sort of host OS environment. Now the story here is that when the game's complete, the story is that the Red Team OS is actually a containerized operating system, and the thing that you're actually using to interact with it is running on your host system, on your host computer, so it can technically access all of your host information and all that stuff, which is why NeoFetch is able to work here. Now, these are in-game commands, but effectively what I'm trying to emulate here is you're actually using your actual system through the Red Team terminal. And the reason I'm doing it this way early on is for testing, but later on I'm going to have this feature as well so that you can actually interact with your host system. But it's going to be as part of a little mission that has a puzzle in it, where maybe your system gets messed up and the container can no longer boot, and you have to figure out how to fix it. And of course you need some system to interact with, so it's going to be your real system. I do believe Hacknet Labyrinths tried that, and it seemed to work out pretty well. I haven't gone that far into the game, but I believe it is a thing that happened, and it was a pretty cool puzzle. I'm going to be doing it as well, a little differently, but I'm going to be doing it nonetheless. Anyway, that's the whole story behind that. So, yeah. Effectively, what we have is a Red Team OS Linux kernel right now. That's kind of cool. It's not an actual Linux kernel, but it's pretending to be one. Anyway, as you can see, these are all of my drive letters, and I can go into, for example, my D drive, which is where I store all of my code, and I can go into projects. And that's one thing you'll also notice, is there's this menu that keeps popping up as I type. It's a little bit buggy right now, but it is actually a preemptive autocomplete menu. So as you type in words, it will try to predict what you might be wanting to type. For example, commands. Maybe I am typing a really long command. Maybe I want to run cowsay and I don't want to type it out fully. Well, there we go. Or maybe, well, actually, cowsay, there we go. I'm not going to run cowsay right now, though. It's buggy. But yeah, it auto-completes commands. And it also auto-completes directories. So if I do cd space EA, it's going to say, hey, there's a games directory folder in here. And it starts with the letters EA. Let's add it to the menu. And then there, I can go into the games folder. And then I can do an ls, and we can see all the directories in there. And then we can do another cd, and maybe I want to go into the Red Team folder. Well, I've typed in the word red, and I have two folders in here. And they're all two hacking games. I have Red Team and Redemption. Redemption is the game that I alluded to in that one video that is no longer in development. But Red Team is this game, so I can select it in the menu, and then I can, by the way, you use the arrow keys up and down to select a auto-completion, and then you hit tab to actually apply it. So I'm going to go into the Red Team folder, and then I can, from there, go into the SRC folder, and then go Red Team, and this is where one of the bugs sets in. It's not actually telling me what my completions are for this folder, even though it should. I have to look into that. I'm not entirely sure why that's happening, but it is one of the bugs, and you know what? This game has existed for not more than 2 days, so that's pretty freaking cool that we even have an auto-completion menu. Anyway, now that we're in the red team source code, I can, for example, cat, and then I can print the console control text. That is the code for the console control. Now, it's gonna probably lag a little bit. I don't know what the frame rate is anymore, but this is actually the source code of the terminal that we are using right now. As you can see, there's quite a lot in here. But we can look through this and kind of see some of the features that I have implemented. Now, I do not blame you guys if you cannot understand any of the code that I'm scrolling through right now, but rest assured, it is all code that makes this terminal work. And it is making this auto-scrolling work and all this stuff. We are looking at the exact code that is running right now, and that's kind of cool. Well, there's no syntax highlighting, though. And yeah, this is kind of cool. There's a lot of code. So yeah, you can feel free to look at this code yourself. It's on GitHub. This game is open source. I can prove that it's open source because if we go up a directory, this is where it starts to lag a little bit. I'm gonna have to definitely discard lines of lines of text once it gets to a certain amount, but that's all right. I can do cat license. I'm just gonna not do that. I'm gonna go readme.md. And I can prove that it's open source by by showing you guys that it does in fact say red team open source cross-platform semi-realistic hacking game. That's what this is. Anyway, since the terminal is starting to lag the game a little bit, I still have to work on performance, definitely, for sure. I'm gonna clear the screen and all of the lag is gonna go away. Bam! Just like that. We're back. Alright, so what else can we do in this terminal? Well, we can type help for a list of commands. I'm going to get out of the source code directory before I mess something up. But we can see all the commands that we can do. For example, we can type in commands for just a command list, just like in the HifNet, as well as programs for a list of other programs that we can run. You can clear the screen, which have you already seen. And then under programs is all of the external external programs that are not tied to the red SH shell. So things like cowsay. Now, there's also a sleep command, which hasn't been in any of my games for a long time, but it actually works. If you type in an amount in milliseconds, for example 200, it will sleep for 200 milliseconds and then print a hell, which is cool. And then, likewise, if I do 2000, it's gonna sleep for 2 seconds. Alright. And PWD, we've already seen. Neofetch, we've seen. And as far as file system commands, we do have mkdir. For example, mkdir test will create the directory test on the real system, actually. And then rm will remove a directory or a file, so rm test. I'm going to delete that folder. And then I can do mkdir test again, cd test. And one thing we can do is we can, for example, echo text. And then we can redirect it or output it into test.txt. And we can read a file. We've seen that before, but I just want to show you. And that's another bug with auto-completions. When a new file is created, it does not automatically get added to your completion list until you cd out of the directory and cd back into it. But anyway, we can see that we've written to that file. And then we can go back a directory, and maybe I want to delete that test folder now. Well, if I do rm test, it's going to say, hey, that directory is not empty. You will need to delete it recursively. But this is a bug, and it's a little artifact of how the game's file system works right now. It's actually printing the real-life Windows path to that folder. That's because we actually caused a real Win32 error to occur, and the game didn't catch it. Oops. Anyway, we can fix that by doing rm-r test. And there's my completion there. Menu working again. But anyway, we type in rm-r test, and that folder is gone. Alright, so that's the file system commands showed off. I'm trying to see if there's anything else we can do. Who am I? Will print your print your username, which is Riolu in this case. I don't know where it's getting Riolu from. Neofetch on my real system prints Riolu out, and my username is not Riolu. It is Alkaline Thunder. I don't know. I have no idea where my operating system is pulling the name Riolu from. But you know what? It's my favorite Pokemon, so we're fine. I'm happy with that. Anyway, Riolu aside, that is basically all of the commands in the game. The final thing that I'm going to show you guys is actually the formatting codes and color codes. Now, I would have had a command in the game to show these codes off, but I don't right now, so that's whatever. But the way this works is there are 3 codes you can enter. There is a ampersand, which has 4 attributes. These are things in your bold and italic. There is the hashtag, which is for the foreground color. And there's the $sign. That's for the background color. And you can test these out using echo. And for the hashtag, or for the color codes, they are hexadecimal, where 0 is the default background. For example, this text is now invisible, you can't read it. 1 is the default foreground. Or, no, it's not. There's a bug. That is great. Neofat. 7 seems to be what the game considers to be normal, I believe. Gray is the normal color. So, yeah. If you can get it to print out gray, then you're fine. But anyway, basically, if you look in Neofet, all the colors are displayed there, and I might even add numbering on the colors. Neofetch doesn't do that in real life, but I'm gonna probably do it in my actual Neofetch renditions, that you can see the color codes that you can use, which isn't hard to do. Anyway, basically, once I get that implemented, you can use any of the colors in that NeoFetch menu, or NeoFetch little grid there, and it'll tell you which ones do what. But anyway, that works with the hashtag and the $sign symbols. For example, this is going to make the background blue, or green actually, but nonetheless it does work. And this is going to make the text bright red. And if I echo it to the screen, it's going to print it in bright red, and then it's going to reset the color for the actual command shell. Anyway, then there's the formatting or attribute codes, which there are quite a few in the game right now, and there's going to be even more coming. For example, you do ampersand lowercase b to make the text bold. Ampersand lowercase I to make it italic. And since I already have bold applied, it's going to be bold italic. But I can remove the bold by doing ampersand uppercase b. And then I can do a ampersand u lowercase to underline, and I can remove the italics with at uppercase I, or ampersand uppercase I, and it's still underlined. That's fine. I can reset everything with ampersand 0. I can reset the font with ampersand 1. And I can make the text blink with ampersand 2. and it'll blink every second, like that. And if I echo that, it all works. Except that's a bug. I know how to fix that, and basically what happened there is the hell forgot to reset the text state, or the console before running the command. It's only doing it after running the command, which is not desirable. That's an easy fix, though. Oh well. Anyway. Let's clear the console. A funny thing I like to do is, if we go into Neofet, we can see that yellow is going to be hashtag E, bright yellow. So what I can do is I can do echo hashtag E ampersand B, and then I can do ampersand 2 to make it blinky, and then I can do ampersand U to underline, and then I can do slash exclamation point and then 2 backslashes. That's to escape it in hell. And then I can do ampersand U to get rid of the underline, and I can type in the word warning. You've been hacked. And then I can do the same thing again, uppercase or ampersand U slash, and then do that, and then I'm gonna do ampersand 0 to reset everything to default, just because the hell doesn't do it. And then you have a pretty good rudimentary sort of graphic for being hacked, and a big scary warning to tell you you've been hacked. I was playing around with that this morning, and I quite like it. Anyway, yeah. So this might be by far the greatest terminal I've ever written for a hacking game. So I'm pretty happy about that. Anyway, there are a few bugs to fix, like I've seen, with the auto-completions and the blinking text. In fact, has a bug where if I start typing, the game keeps resetting the text blinking, which is not desirable at all. But, oh well. It happens. Anyway, oh yeah, one more thing, is if I do a bunch of help commands, this is the last feature, I promise, you can see that there's a lot going on screen right now, and then maybe I'll do another Neofet, and yeah, all that stuff. Maybe I want to scroll with my keyboard. Well, I actually can. I can use the page up and page down keys to scroll up a page, or scroll up a single screen worth of space, which is pretty cool. Anyway, in the next video, I'm probably going to show you guys the source code of this, and show you guys how I pulled off some of these cool effects, and how it all works. I'm really anxious to show you guys Neofetch, because I think it's really cool. Special thanks to, both Vrabbers and Palantir in Bits and Bytes for helping me out with Neofetch and implementing some of the statistics that are implemented into it. For example, the RAM and the graphics card and all that stuff, and the CPU. These are not trivial things to grab in C#, so I'm really grateful to have those guys helping me out here. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. As always, I've been Michael, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys are excited for what's to come. I'm probably not going to make too many dev updates of this game, but I will definitely keep you guys posted as to what the game is like right now. I'm going to fix a few bugs with the terminal, and then I'm going to release this build, and by the time this video is up, there will most likely be a post on the forum with a download link to this build. It'll be it'll be both Windows and Linux, provided I can get it to build on Linux. It should work. I've had at least one person in Bits and Bytes test it out on their Arch system, and it did work. But anyway, I've been Michael, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.